Hey guys, how's it going? So lately I've been watching a lot of Louder with Crowder highlight videos. He has his highlights channel, and I do think the man in general makes a lot of strong points, and he obviously knows what he's talking about. But today I wanted to talk about his series, which is his most popular series for a lot of very obvious and unfortunate reasons, Change My Mind. And I was actually listening to one video where they mentioned that was sort of a spur of the moment thing, I think, and it wasn't like a planned series, and it just sort of ended up being one of their biggest series, and so they just kind of took it and ran. And so generally I just watch highlights from his podcast or whatever, but YouTube started recommending me his Change My Mind videos, and I remember watching a few of them from like 2016 or whenever it was like sort of a new thing and just blowing up and coming on the scene. But there are certain aspects to it that really that bug me. So first of all, political discourse these days is always very, very combative, very hate-filled, and it's about trying to put yourself up on a pedestal and knock the other guy off of theirs. That's essentially what all political discussion is these days, which is really unfortunate. And in his videos, when you actually watch the Change My Mind things, first of all, he knows he's going to get some people who don't know what they're talking about, who are unprepared, who don't have the knowledge or even the conversational skills to keep up with him. And I've noticed in a lot of his videos, he even comes with a little binder of like facts. So he's just ready to tear these people apart. He knows that is what's going to happen. It's pretty clear that he's not actually there to see if someone can change his mind, but to shut down unprepared students who are just sort of passionately deciding to sit down with him and attack him because they don't like him because he's from the other side. So already the premise is kind of disingenuous. But the other thing is he will during the discussion, he always tries to remain very very calm and collected and respectful of the other side, and he even mentions a lot of the time, if the other side is being respectful towards him, he says often, "Thank you for being so civil." But then you look at some of the titles of his videos, and they are very, well, first of all, they are very clickbaity, but that's not even the point. He sort of destroys his entire standard of being civil just with the title, because when you're watching the video, he appears as though he's very, like, they're the crazy one who's getting all angry, and then he's just like sitting there and trying to be respectful, and then the title of the video is like, "Ugly bitch goes crazy." It's like, you can't. And again, I agree with a lot of the stuff he has to say, but that in itself is very, very two-faced. It's just straight up fucked up. And then there was one video that I just watched, in which she was talking with an older woman about, that's basically about what Trump has done with immigration and all the how he turned them all away, blah, blah, blah. The woman was mentioning, she brought up a good point. She said, there are government stations in which someone who approaches the border can go to and request to see a judge for citizenship. And she was mentioning how Trump had shut those things down, and instead of engaging her on that, Stephen really completely disregarded that, and then just started asking her like about the definition of a border or something, and if someone crosses, that makes them illegal, so Trump's just following the law. But she brought up a very, very solid point, and instead of just trying to dismantle that, he did sidestep it, and she called him out on it. She said, you're running circles, you're going back, you're not really answering what I'm saying.
I think if there were people who were sitting at the border trying to walk into, from what I understood, that there are sort of government spots where they could walk in there and say, I'm here as a refugee, please allow me in, those places were closed down. How do you make it impossible for them not to obey the law and then arrest them and say you disobeyed the law?
You can't cross into this country illegally.
You're talking immigration law versus the problem of the refugees who are coming here and saying, I would like to apply for refugee status. I would like to prove that I've been.
Sure.
And they're not giving their day at court. They've had, I think there was something report of a woman who was, her day that she was supposed to actually be in court was on a plane being sent back to Venezuela or Guatemala or wherever, and the judge says, get her back here.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I want to make, because and I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you being civil. I think we're maybe missing each other here. Can you explain to me, someone crosses the, let's say, Mexican-American border, right? Does so without any verification, just does so in the heat of the night. Illegal immigrant. You're not allowed to come into this country illegally, and you should be deported if you do.
What about the refugees? I said I'm not talking about the immigrants. I'm talking about the refugees.
They're to be deported. They're illegal immigrants.
And if they are absolutely prevented from doing it legally, then what is that?
That is enforcing immigration laws.
That is not enforcing immigration laws.
Do you believe that it's a right that anyone who wants to come here should be able to be granted citizenship?
No.
Okay. So what's the problem with vetting people who are coming here illegally or sending them back?
You are trying to twist this around. You are not addressing the refugees. You're not addressing the fact that people are coming here from Venezuela or Guatemala, whatever South American countries they're trying to come in, saying that I cannot stay there.
Yeah.
We will be killed.
The other thing is just he's like Ben Shapiro, in which he's very quick. No, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing. What are you talking about? I'm not doing that. Like he fills your fucking mind with all this like shit that's like it's for anyone would be tough to process all at once, and he sort of overwhelms you. So my problem is it's almost worse that he's pretending to be civil and kind and thoughtful and respectful and trying to have an open discourse. But when you actually look for 2 seconds at what he's doing, he's being just as combative and manipulative as anyone else in political discourse and media these days. So, and I think that's a huge problem, and I'm disappointed in him because again, I do like a lot of his points. I agree with him a lot of things, but I think having a truly open discourse and being truly respectful to one another is the only way that we're going to move forward. And the fact that he's pretending that's what he's all about, and then he turns around and just ends up being just as fucking bad as anyone else who's trying to go into a discussion with the intent of winning rather than learning something. It's incredibly slimy. I mean, the whole thing is called Change My Mind, right? So it's like, oh, we're gonna have a discussion and maybe we'll come out of this with our minds changed. And I'm sure that's never actually happened. I mean, maybe there's one time where like the person he talked to was actually like, yeah, maybe I'll change my mind. It was probably some guy who was pretty middle of the road anyway. And it wasn't actually that big a deal, but I'm sure they made a huge fucking deal out of it. So it's just, it's sad. It's really disappointing. You can't, like, it's super fucked up. And again, I want to like the guy, but that whole series is incredibly disingenuous, very clickbaity, very counterproductive for everyone besides him, because I'm sure he's raking in monetization. Well, maybe not anymore, because I know YouTube fucked him. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. There was a point in the video which I was 100% on the woman's side. Some of the stuff that is going on the border and some of the stuff that Trump had to do with is indefensible. It is, and again, like the separation of parents from their kids wasn't a intentional thing, but it is something that needed to be rectified. And the way they were going really harsh on all these immigrants, and they were shutting down these border stations for which immigrants could go to, was a very, very fair point that she brought up. And again, and this guy, the thing with having a discussion, having an argument, is that I mean, there's a whole video about how Ben Shapiro is like a great argumenter. You know, he's really good at dismantling the other side. Doesn't necessarily mean he's correct. You can. A lot of this is just like wordplay and redirection. You can fuck with someone's brain until they're so completely discombobulated that it seems as if you were right and they're wrong. But the art of discussion isn't really about actual thought process. Again, it's more about confusing someone. It's like if you're in it's like if you're fencing and you do like the figure 8 to disorient your enemy. It's like the same thing. It's just it's all about battle and showmanship, and it's not really about thought. So again, just be very careful with any of these political commentators you find, because they appear very on top, very intelligent, because they are good argumenters, where at the end of the day, they're just very, very good at sort of attacking their opponent and dismantling their opponent. And the way he has his whole shtick set up is very predatory. Like, again, he knows he's with his little fucking book. I'm sure he's like gone through all these facts beforehand, and he's just ready to fucking destroy someone who just happened to see this on the side of the road and decided to walk up and have a discussion with him. They're not prepared like he is. And then even when they do bring up a good point, like that old woman did, he doesn't decide to engage and maybe decide that he has changed his mind. He decides to sidestep it and go around it and keep just attacking. And that's wrong. It's fucking wrong. Don't let anyone speak for you. I know it's tempting to see someone like Ben Shapiro or Steven Crowder or whoever and be like, this guy, I agree with this guy, he can speak for me. But don't do that. Don't get too down with these guys, and don't get too passive when it comes to your thinking on anything political or anything important. Because these guys are entertainers at the end of the day. And like, so am I, but I'm not pretending that I'm this great mind. So just be careful. Always think for yourself. Don't let any of these guys think for you. And I'll see you around.